Hey guys, welcome to Modeling Insanity TV. I'm Rob Riv, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in to our first full show report of the 2025 show season. This one is from Mosquitocon 33 from Wayne, New Jersey, which took place this past Saturday, April 4th. Mosquitocon is a great show with a lot of entries and excellent work on display. But for me, these shows are all about seeing friends and having a good time. Because of the amount of entries at the show, this show report will be broken down into two parts. This first part will have a slideshow showcasing all the armor, figures, Gundam, and Sci-Fi entries. I'm starting part one of this show report with a sped-up walk around of the display room. I walked around about an hour before registration closed because I wanted to take all the pictures before judging took place. I cropped the photos as best as I could to fit the screen resolution of YouTube, so some pics of larger models and figures have black bars on the sides, but just a few. The slideshow starts with all the armor entries, followed by figures, then Gundams, then Sci-Fi. We end the slideshow with pics of the entries in these categories that received some of the Modeling Insanity Podcast and Military Modelcraft International Challenge coins. If you're not familiar with what that is, organizations are now giving peer recognition to models in the form of coins or poker chips. These coins or chips were not given to the biggest and best models, but to entries that myself and the other guys felt warranted recognition. With that being said, let's finish this quick walkthrough of the display room and then get on with the slideshow for part one. I also added some music to the slideshow, so hopefully it works, so let's get started. Alright, hopefully you enjoyed the picks for part 1, and we are ending it with the entries that received the Insanity Podcast and Military Modelcraft Challenge coins. And as you can see from the picks, this was a great show. All the details are in the description below regarding the show and venue. Also, like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a video, and we appreciate the support. Also, you can listen to me as well as my fellow co-hosts on the Modeling Insanity Podcast, which you can find on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and other podcast hosting companies, as well as the Quarter Scale Madness Podcast, which focuses on everything 1/48 scale and quarter scale models. I hope you enjoyed this show report, and as always, feel free to message me anytime on my Facebook modeling page at Rob Riv's Modeling Insanity. I appreciate everybody watching, and look out for part 2 of this show report, as well as other tutorials and full builds coming soon.